Hi, I'm Neil deGrasse Tyson, your host for Nova Science Now, where this season we're asking 6 big questions. On this episode, how does the brain work?
Para descobrir, vamos até Las Vegas, onde investigadores do cérebro estão a apostar na magia. Alguns dos maiores mágicos do mundo estão a fazer desaparecer os mistérios por trás do nosso órgão mais poderoso.
I saw it go over. I swear I saw it go over.
Os mágicos revelam os seus segredos,
That motion will draw the eye.
dando novas informações sobre como o nosso cérebro presta atenção.
This would be a major contribution to science from the magicians.
E também uma varinha magnética
Oh, that was nice.
que consegue controlar o nosso corpo e o nosso discurso.
It can turn a part of the brain up or down or temporarily turn it off.
Pode até mudar a nossa maneira de pensar.
It's a remarkable thing that one can put something over somebody's head and modify the way they behave.
E conhecemos alguns professores que são duros com os alunos, mas este aqui ganha o primeiro prémio.
You're dropped from a 150-foot tall tower in free fall backwards.
Este investigador do cérebro não tem medo de ir a extremos para resolver um dos maiores enigmas da ciência.
Brains are like fingerprints, and they're slightly different in everybody.
Sobretudo quando alguns veem uma realidade diferente.
A's are always red, and M's are green.
How does the brain, with its hundreds of billions of neurons, put together reality for us?
All that and more on this episode, Nova Science Now. Everything we do, every thought we've ever had, is produced by the human brain. But exactly how it operates remains one of the biggest unsolved mysteries. And it seems the more we probe its inner workings, the more surprises we find. Here's one of the biggest surprises. As clever and as perceptive as the human brain can be, and as talented as it might be, it can still be fooled by a simple magic trick. Keep your eye on the ball, son. For centuries, magicians have intuitively taken advantage of the inner workings of our brains. Usually, they keep their tricks secret. But I met up with some magicians who are willing to come clean. Eyes on the ball, son. To help unlock hidden mysteries of how the brain really works. This one? Sure? Sorry.
Bem-vindos a Las Vegas, capital mundial do entretenimento. Não estamos aqui para enriquecer depressa.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, right this way.
Viemos para ser enganados por alguns dos melhores mágicos do mundo.
Now, in order to catch fish, you have to have the proper fishing pole and you have to have the proper bait. The Fig Newton.
Com Fig Newton como isco, Mac King leva-nos à pesca.
You and I are fishing out here in mid-air, but we're not looking for just any fish. We're catching goldfish.
De repente, uma mancha cor de laranja aparece no anzol.
Neil, hold that glass over here. Check him out.
E já está, apanhamos um peixinho.
That's a dang real fish. It's real. It's real.
A magia é uma forma de arte sofisticada praticada por profissionais experientes
You know the rule here in Las Vegas?
que sabem exatamente como enganar o nosso cérebro.
Whatever you catch, you gotta eat. Oh, he's still there. He's still there.
Será que a antiga arte da magia pode indicar-nos como o cérebro funciona? Com mais de 100 mil milhões de células nervosas, cada uma produzindo milhares de ligações complexas, o cérebro humano, uma bola de tecido do tamanho da palma da nossa mão, é tão poderoso que consegue contemplar a vastidão do universo. No entanto, pode ser enganado pelo pequeno truque da moeda. Apresento-vos Apollo Robbins, nome artístico Apollo, o Senhor Ladrão. Há uns anos atrás, ele embaraçou os agentes dos serviços secretos do presidente Jimmy Carter ao roubar-lhes as carteiras durante uma visita do presidente a Las Vegas. Hoje, Apollo concordou em partilhar connosco alguns dos seus segredos. Primeiro, mostrou-nos um movimento especial que usa para distrair as suas vítimas quando lhes rouba as carteiras.
So when I go for a pocket and I'm coming out of it like this, that motion done in natural time will draw the eye a little
I'm going to follow that hand out of my pocket.
Yes.
Even if that's just a decoy for me.
And I have a second longer with this hand to do something else.
Segundo Apollo, é este movimento curvo que distrai a atenção daquilo que ele está realmente a fazer. A roubar alguma coisa do bolso ou a fazer uma moeda desaparecer. Os neurocientistas Susana Martínez Conde e Stephen Macknick vieram observar Apollo. Esperam que ele os possa ajudar a resolver um mistério fundamental. Como é que o cérebro humano decide ao que é que deve tomar atenção?
Neuroscientists know a lot about how the brain works. We know where the visual centers are, we know where the auditory centers are, but we don't really have a very good idea about attention and awareness yet.
Decidem filmar Apollo a utilizar o movimento curvo para a moeda desaparecer. No laboratório, preparam pessoas para o observarem. Envolvem-nos neste aparelho, equipado com câmaras minúsculas dirigidas aos olhos do sujeito.
We're measuring the eye position 500 or 1,000 times a second, and what we're analyzing is where are the eyes at every given moment of time in comparison to what's being presented on the screen.
A experiência revela que os olhos seguem o percurso da mão de Apollo, tal como ele previra.
I'm going to move my index finger from left to right, and I'm going to follow it with my eyes. What my eyes are doing right now is smooth pursuit. A smooth pursuit allows you to track a moving target.
A visão é um esforço coordenado entre os olhos e o cérebro. Quando os nossos olhos veem um objeto, a luz refletida a partir da sua superfície viaja até à retina, onde se transforma em sinais neuronais. Estes sinais vão para uma parte do cérebro dedicada à visão. Aqui começamos a formar uma imagem. Mas não prestamos atenção a tudo aquilo para que olhamos. Como é que o cérebro controla aquilo em que nos concentramos e no que não nos concentramos? Num novo projeto, Susana e Stephen, em conjunto com José Manuel Alonso, descobriram que quando os nossos olhos apanham algo como o movimento circular de Apollo, há mais do que uma célula cerebral a funcionar. Um tipo de célula detecta o movimento, enquanto outra suprime o plano de fundo.
Your brain is actively suppressing the parts of the visual scene that you don't pay attention to.
And this relates to what Apollo was telling us, that when you're tracking something, that you ignore everything around it.
These two types of neurons that we are beginning to understand could explain, why magicians are so good at what they do.
Noutro truque, vemos uma moeda a voar, mas ela nunca aterra.
That was good.
Yeah. So you see the coin, the shininess flicking through the air. You see the light glint off.
I see it.
Yeah. And then it disappears.
Yeah, and I saw it go over.
And you saw it go over.
I swear I saw it go over.
And it doesn't go over.
Neil tem a certeza que viu Mac a lançar a moeda. Porque é que viu uma coisa que na realidade não aconteceu. No laboratório, quando os voluntários veem o truque no monitor, ficam estupefactos, tal como Neil.
So Mac's creating this illusion of inferred motion. So you see this motion that didn't actually take place.
Na realidade, o nosso cérebro é sensível, talvez demasiado sensível ao movimento. É um mecanismo de sobrevivência.
That motion detection, that's really a useful brain skill.
The fact that I detect motion even though it's not actually there.
Yeah, you make these assumptions to ensure, that you don't get hit by a spear coming from your left side.
It's better to think there's a tiger moving in the brush and be wrong than to not notice it and get eaten.
Yeah, exactly.
Mas, por vezes, mesmo os mágicos mais astutos, como os famosos Penn e Teller, não têm a certeza porque é que um truque funciona. Penn e Teller têm feito truques de magia há mais de 25 anos. Penn é o falador. Teller é o parceiro silencioso. Desta vez são os mágicos a pedir aos neurocientistas para explicarem um truque. É um dos seus favoritos. Aquele em que fazem as bolas aparecer e desaparecer debaixo de copos.
Take the ball, you place it in our hand, we vanish it, and it appears underneath the cup. Here's a little variation Teller came up with, where he takes the ball, places it in his hand, then shows you underneath the cup, yet it still appears underneath the cup. If you take the center ball, place it visibly in the center cup, these side balls, really put them away, we don't need them anymore. We have 3 balls right underneath here. That's where they regroup. So we have a giant ball in the center cup, one more giant ball on either side, and of course for the finish, it's an American baseball right there.
My head is still spinning.
Surpreendentemente, o truque funciona mesmo com copos de plástico transparente.
This is the Penn and Teller easy-to-follow version of the cups and balls.
Teller pediu a Susana e a Stephen para explicarem uma parte do truque. Está tão curioso que concordou em dar uma entrevista, desde que não o mostremos a falar.
The thing that I'd like to see Susanna and Steve study is that very elemental move where the ball's on top of a cup and I tip it off while secretly loading the ball.
Teller quer saber porque é que não o vemos a colocar uma segunda bola debaixo do copo. Para ele é óbvio. Os cientistas filmam-no a fazer este movimento e mostram-no aos voluntários. Depois mostram uma versão diferente, uma que não mostra a cara de Teller. E isso acaba por fazer uma diferença enorme. Tal como o movimento curvo de mão num truque de moedas, a face do mágico comanda a nossa atenção o suficiente para nos distrair daquilo que se está a passar.
Even though you may think that you're looking at the balls all the time, the fact that Teller's face is present can draw your attention away from the loaded balls in the cups.
Magic is sort of cognitive juggling.
The center ball, the center cup, each of the side balls really...
If you come to a magic show with the intention of exercising your ability to discern fact from fancy and you fail, that's a fine piece of entertainment. So it's this wonderful playground where you can just sort of relax and go, oh boy, it's really hard to understand the world.
I'm hoping that our work here gives people a different perspective of magic. What's fascinating about our work is that we are a study of human nature, of human behavior. And we have certain information that has been passed down through generations that can be utilized in a way that interfaces with science. And I'm really excited about that collaboration.
When we talk about brain power, lots of people think of computers as being even smarter than we are. And for some tasks, they've definitely got the advantage.
Queen to bishop 6.
Computers have proved to be formidable chess players. In fact, they've beaten our top human chess champions. Knight takes queen. Your turn.
Turning.
You see, they can be stumped by simple ideas or phrases that our brain wouldn't think twice about.
Turning.
No, not turn. I mean, go. No, not go away. I mean, make your move. No, move one of your chess pieces on this chessboard in response to my last play.
Bishop to king 7.
Correspondent Jake Ward checked in with researchers to find out just how far we've come in the world of artificial intelligence.
Kneel.
And whether machines will ever pose a real threat
Kneel.
to the complex power of the human brain.
Checkmate.
É uma das ideias mais poderosas que dominam a ficção científica. Construir uma máquina com poderes mentais iguais ou maiores do que os nossos para criar inteligência artificial.
Tell me, what is love?
Ou IA,
Good evening, Dave.
How you doing, Hal?
Everything's running smoothly, and you?
Artificial intelligence is trying to get computers and robots to do stuff that if people did them, you'd say, oh, that's what makes humans humans.
Ora, como todos sabem, a inteligência artificial nos filmes parece correr bem. Mas e na vida real? Tínhamos maiores, porque a inteligência artificial está rapidamente a atravessar a barreira que separa a fantasia da realidade.
The world has been totally transformed by artificial intelligence, and it will continue to be transformed. Things are getting smarter, and it's really hard for us to imagine how different it's going to be.
Já passaram 5 anos desde que este grupo de veículos sem condutor correram uns contra os outros no deserto Mojave. E já passaram 13 anos desde que um computador derrotou o ser humano campeão mundial de xadrez. E provavelmente já interagimos com uma máquina inteligente.
Want to know what books you'd enjoy? You no longer have to visit the neighborhood bookstore. Today, Amazon's supercomputers and sophisticated software can predict with uncanny accuracy what you'd like. In my case, it's a couple of history books and a lot of comic books.
Sorry, I didn't understand.
Mas a inteligência artificial que está no centro do nosso mundo ainda está a uma grande distância de um HAL, o famoso computador do filme 2001 Odisseia no Espaço.
Do you mind if I ask you a personal question?
No, not at all.
Well, HAL podia conversar, responder e até mesmo perguntar.
How do you mean?
Mas isso requer uma capacidade que é difícil para computadores reais. A linguagem humana.
It's natural for humans, right? In fact, you could think of humans, natural language processing machines, right? I mean, they can be implicit, they can be ambiguous, they use context. But a computer can't relate the words to human experience. They're really just symbols. So it's a challenge for the computer to take lots of different pieces of language and try to figure out, gee, does this mean that?
Humana, haverá um computador capaz de entender?
Hello, my name is Watson. I have to test my voice to make sure I can be heard and that I'm not speaking too loudly.
Any connection whatsoever?
Watson é a criação de uma equipa de cientistas da IBM, liderada por David Ferrucci. Nos últimos 4 anos, tem estado a desenhar este supercomputador para responder a questões de um qualquer assunto.
Watson. Who is Arturo Toscanini? Good.
Estão agora a preparar o Watson para um teste público, concorrer ao famoso concurso de perguntas e respostas Jeopardy. É um jogo de palavras que desafia até mesmo os seres humanos mais espertos.
Jeopardy is a game that changes, right? It evolves. There's a huge variety of questions.
They might ask about movies or sports or geography or politics or anything. So it's kind of the benchmark, I think, for knowledge of a wide variety of topics and also being able to think fast.
Is that right?
Muitos colegas de Ferrucci acharam que um concurso na televisão nacional contra os campeões de Jeopardy era demasiado arriscado.
And the consensus among the group, although I personally didn't share it, was that no way, we're not going to do this. Too difficult to do, we'll embarrass ourselves. Did I expect to get fired? No, but maybe. What I more expected was, you're going to lose credibility.
Cincinnati's daily paper has this name.
Para preparar o Watson para o concurso, a IBM construiu uma réplica do estúdio do Jeopardy, contratou um apresentador e até recrutou concorrentes veteranos.
Maria. What is hazelnut? Thank you. This trusted friend was the first non-dairy powdered creamer. Watson?
What is milk?
Holy no, that was wrong. Maria? What is coffee made? Thank you.
So the first time we saw Watson compete, it was tough. We had a lot of problems, but we're learning a lot about how to make Watson better at understanding language in different contexts and understand that in one context, a word means one thing and another means another thing.
A garment worn by a child, perhaps aboard an operatic ship. Watson?
What is pinafore?
Yes. How did you get that? Very nicely done. Watson, choose again.
Para apreciar o que é este feito para uma máquina, pensem contra quem o Watson está a jogar. É o cérebro humano. Consegue armazenar cerca de 1 milhão de gigabytes de informação. Por comparação, 4 vezes essa capacidade. Mas Watson não está ligado à internet. Foi alimentado de documentos, antologias, dicionários, enciclopédias. Mas nenhuma quantidade de informação é suficiente, porque empilhar dados é só metade do problema, já que o Jeopardy é um jogo de linguagem, um jogo de conhecimento.
Watson?
What is Smallville?
Smallville, yes.
They come up with very sneaky questions that include slang and puns and that sort of thing. So it can be very challenging just for the computer to understand what's being asked for, much less trying to answer it.
And we couldn't write rules for every combination of word and phrases and context for every possible question or thing that Jeopardy might ask. Moreover, it was sort of my philosophical view that that's not the right way to approach AI.
Em vez disso, Watson foi ensinado a descobrir a semelhança entre coisas, analisando milhares de exemplos de origens diversas.
This saint wields a candy cane-like lance in Il Sodoma's painting of him slaying a dragon. Watson.
What is St. George?
Good for 400. Where to, Watson?
I actually looked at, well, how do we even get this one at all? And it turns out that from one document, we were finding this association with a painter. From this other document about dragons, we were finding out that St. George slays dragons. And so what Watson was able to do then was take the evidence from both of these and put these together.
That is correct.
Watson estava a ganhar 64% das perguntas quando alguém teve a oportunidade de o bater.
Jake.
What is lanyard?
No. Refusing to imprison this man for demonstrating during the 1960s, de Gaulle said, "One does not arrest Voltaire." To whom are we referring? Jake, did you come up with the right answer? You had $9,400. Let's take a look on your board and see what did you say. Who is Albert Camus? No. Watson, it's all up to you now, my friend. You had $41,805. What did you write down as your correct response? Who is Jean-Paul Sartre?
Yeah.
That is correct.
Man,
he trounced us.
Yeah.
Então como é que o Watson consegue? Em parte imitando os seres humanos que está a tentar derrotar.
When you think of Watson from a hardware perspective, with all its cores, all its processing units running at the same time and communicating with each other at different points, does it sound like the human brain? I think at that level it does.
Os nossos cérebros são especialistas em várias tarefas, em disparar milhões de neurónios em simultâneo para resolver um problema. Da mesma forma, Watson contém um exército procurando ligações para as palavras e frases. Depois de interpretar uma pista de Watson e dezenas de respostas possíveis.
The next thing that Watson is going to do is going to take those answers and say, well, let's assume all of them. So these are its competing hypotheses. Once it makes that assumption, it takes each one and says, let me go and try to get evidence supporting this answer as the right one.
De certa forma, Watson adivinha de forma consistente, processando centenas de respostas possíveis, usando estatística para ver qual é provavelmente a mais correta.
And in the end, we get a list that says, here's the top answer, and we're 75% sure it's right. And that confidence is based on what we call an evidence profile, which gives you these scores that say, I like this kind of evidence, I like popularity evidence, I like classification evidence, and all those things get added up to say, yes, I'm 75% sure I'm right, I want to buzz in.
After Germany invaded the Netherlands, this queen, her family, and cabinet fled to London. Watson?
Who is Wilhelmina?
That is correct. Watson is the confirmed champion for this game.
Então será que este emaranhado de circuitos e de silicone nos aproxima do sonho de uma inteligência artificial completamente desenvolvida?
Can you speak Bocce? Of course I can, sir. It's like a second language to me.
É surpreendente que mesmo Ferrucci acha que estamos longe desse objetivo.
I actually don't believe that, at least the way we program and develop computers today, you can actually create a human intelligence.
For me, the question isn't how intelligent is a computer or how smart is a robot. It's how it acts in the world, doing interesting things and stuff that we want done, and it's a total interaction.
Por isso pode valer a pena investir milhões num computador que joga um jogo, porque um dia pode fazer muito mais. Imaginem o Watson como assistente de um médico que consegue associar um conjunto de sintomas a diagnósticos de que um médico pode nunca ter ouvido falar. Ou um Watson que pudesse reunir as provas para um advogado. Uma máquina pensante que podia, em resumo, dar-nos uma espécie de segundo cérebro.
People wonder why you keep trying to build an artificial intelligence if you've got such a good brain. Well, there's some really good birds out there and they fly real well, but 747 is still useful, and I'm glad we have 747s. We can learn from birds and build 747s. We can learn from brains and build useful artifacts.
We know our brains run on electrical impulses. Every time we move or make a decision, electricity's buzzing among our brain cells. So imagine if you could tap into that circuitry like you do with a TV remote. You really shouldn't be eating that. Could you ever control another person's actions or thoughts?
There's your check, hon.
I'll get that. Seems like science fiction. But as correspondent Mo Rocca discovered, it's not.
Imagine a magnetic wand that could control your brain. To find out if such a thing could actually work, I offered my own brain for a test. It seemed like fun at the time.
Hold it up, you can look at it.
Psychiatrist and neurologist Mark George said he could make my thumb twitch.
Jeez, it does.
Oh, that was nice.
Usando um mapa do cérebro, pode focar na área que controla uma parte do corpo, como o dedo do pé.
Oh, wow. That last stroke's a little too much?
A little bit, yeah, it was a little much.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
A varinha pode até afetar o discurso.
10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
E quando o impulso é removido,
25, 26, 27,
volta tudo ao normal.
29, 30.
It's sort of a remarkable thing that one can put something over somebody's head and modify the way they behave.
Wow.
A varinha funciona produzindo um impulso magnético forte.
It doesn't look like a lot, but the magnetic field that it generates is about the strength of an MRI machine, of a very strong MRI machine.
Dado que a eletricidade e o magnetismo são duas formas da mesma coisa, um ímã pode afetar os sinais elétricos no nosso cérebro.
Now this is your brain. It's basically an electric web of billions of neurons wired together. When a strong magnetic pulse hits these neurons, it alters their electric current.
O processo chama-se estimulação magnética transcraniana, ou EMT.
Electricity is the currency of the brain. All thoughts, all beliefs, all actions are just electrical impulses. And so TMS, we're actually able to get in there and influence the currency of the brain focally and non-invasively.
Quanto mais forte for o impulso magnético, mais fundo nos embrenhamos no cérebro. E ajustando o padrão desse impulso, podemos mudar a forma como essa parte do cérebro funciona.
We can turn a part of the brain up or down or temporarily turn it off. It doesn't take a genius to see that it should be a pretty fertile way to begin to understand how the brain works.
O mistério que George queria desvendar é como é que o cérebro processa a dor. Por exemplo, quando os corredores da corrida podem nem sentir. O que está a acontecer no cérebro que mascara a dor?
You know, it's very common if you're in the middle of a great sports event and you twist your ankle, you will not feel that pain until after the event.
Quando magoamos o tornozelo, os sinais de dor são enviados através do sistema nervoso para o córtex sensorial. Mas os investigadores suspeitaram que uma zona chamada córtex pré-frontal, a parte pensante do nosso cérebro, também desempenha um papel fundamental na nossa percepção da dor. George decidiu testar esta ideia com EMT. Pediu a 40 pessoas que iam fazer cirurgia ao estômago para fazerem parte de um estudo.
So what we decided to do was to grab them the first opportunity that we could, that is when they come right out of the operating room, and we would just apply a 20-minute session of TMS and then walk away. What we chose to do was to position the coil really right in the center of the part of the cortex that we thought mattered, and then see if we got an effect.
Depois tinham que monitorizar o limite da dor para cada pessoa para ver se a EMT tinha feito. Encontraram um instrumento de medição pouco ortodoxo, uma bomba de morfina. Contando quantas vezes um doente disparava um medicamento contra as dores, registaram o nível de dor que a pessoa aguentava. Metade dos doentes receberam EMT verdadeiro no córtex pré-frontal. A outra metade recebeu uma descarga fictícia que não teria qualquer efeito no cérebro. Se o EMT funcionasse, os doentes que recebiam o verdadeiro EMT carregavam menos vezes na bomba.
And surprisingly, in 2 studies now, it essentially cuts their need for anti-pain medicines, cuts it in half for the next day, which is a whopping clinical effect.
Os resultados sugerem que esta área pequena, localizada no córtex pré-frontal, desempenha um papel fundamental na forma como sentimos a dor. A EMT pode não só reduzir a dor física, mas também há dados que indicam que também consegue tratar a dor emocional. Durante décadas, os médicos têm tratado a depressão clínica com terapia eletroconvulsiva, uma carga intensa que atinge todo o cérebro. Mas há investigadores que acham que a EMT pode ser uma alternativa menos radical. Sugerem que a depressão clínica pode ser criada quando o córtex pré-frontal deixa as emoções negativas descontrolarem-se. Portanto, decidiram usar EMT para tentar estimular o córtex pré-frontal e fazê-lo trabalhar.
So my thought was that by persistent, daily, repeated, subtle switching of the prefrontal cortex circuitry could somehow reset that system.
That's sort of similar to what happens when you jumpstart your car.
George recrutou 190 doentes, pessoas que tinham passado anos em depressão e tinham tentado tudo, de terapia à medicação, sem sucesso. Todos os dias úteis, durante 6 semanas, os médicos deram aos doentes 38 minutos de tratamento com EMT. Não funcionou para toda a gente. Para 1/3 das pessoas fez pouco ou nada. Para o outro terço, ajudou alguma coisa. E para as pessoas restantes?
About 1/3 of the people that got this kind of a treatment over 4 to 6 weeks remitted. That is, all of their depression symptoms went away.
Hoje em dia, mais de 200 clínicas usam a EMT para tratar a depressão quando os medicamentos falham e antes do paciente se submeter a terapia eletroconvulsiva. Mas talvez a EMT seja mais importante como ferramenta de investigação, não só para alterar a forma como nos sentimos, mas para ter impacto na forma como pensamos. O Dr. Pascoal Leone juntou-se à neurocientista Rebecca Sachs para estudar como é que o cérebro avalia algo como bom ou como mau. O primeiro passo foi arranjar histórias, algumas mesmo horripilantes.
Our stories have dozens of different ways that one person could hurt another person. We just sit around the lab making up different ways people could attempt to kill each other.
Histórias como esta. Teddy e o seu irmão gêmeo Freddy trabalham num laboratório de química. Quando Teddy vai buscar café para os dois, Freddy pede para pôr açúcar no dele. Perto da máquina de café, há um pó branco num frasco com a etiqueta tóxico. Teddy acha que o pó é uma substância tóxica ali deixada por outro cientista. Põe o pó no café de Freddy e ele bebe. No entanto, o pó era mesmo açúcar. Portanto, Freddy ficou ileso. Numa escala de 1 a 7, sendo 1 correspondente a bom e 7 nada bom, avalie o comportamento de Teddy. O que é que uma pessoa normal retira desta história?
Oh, I'd say 7.
7? Yeah. That's pretty harsh.
Well, I mean, you know, it said poison toxic on it, right?
Evil intent.
You're giving it then a score of
7.
Os investigadores acham que estas apreciações tão duras baseiam-se no facto das pessoas acreditarem que Teddy pretendia magoar o seu irmão. E há uma parte específica do cérebro, chamada a junção temporoparietal, que julga as intenções.
On this brain, it would be about here. On you, it would be above and behind your right ear.
O que aconteceria se a EMT desligasse esta parte do cérebro?
We predicted that if we could interfere with neural activity in the right TPJ, we would be able to change people's moral judgments.
Nesta experiência, 20 sujeitos leem 48 histórias de moral, tal como aquela acerca de Freddy e Teddy, e depois atribuem uma avaliação. Os cientistas acham que desligar esta zona fará com que as pessoas liguem menos às intenções de Teddy.
And just when you get to the point that Teddy gives Freddy the coffee with the powder in it, and we ask you, was that morally wrong? Just at that point, we give you a really brief pulse of TMS into your RTPJ.
Depois de terem sido tocadas pela varinha, o que é que as pessoas pensam de Teddy, o químico malvado?
What we found is that people who are having TMS to their right TPJ make moral judgments that depend less on the person's beliefs and intentions.
O que significa que alguém que passasse pela EMT mais dificilmente julgaria Teddy de forma severa, mesmo se ele tentou envenenar o irmão.
They still thought it was wrong.
They still thought it was wrong. It was just less wrong. Nothing bad happened after all.
Boys will be boys, they thought.
Os cientistas acham que a EMT vai continuar a desvendar os mistérios sobre a forma como funciona o cérebro, como se avaria ou como se pode reparar.
If you know what circuit is abnormal, you can modify it and have a therapeutic effect. We're going to learn a lot about the brain and be able to help a lot of patients.
Two people looking at exactly the same thing may see it in entirely different ways. When I look at this painting, I see the Eagle Nebula in the constellation Serpens. Nose, eyes, fur. I see my pet poodle, Tuffy. So why is that? Why do our brains at times interpret things we see or experience so differently? Nose. In this episode's profile, we meet a neuroscientist who's looking into the brain and discovering some people whose brains see the world in ways shockingly different. Tuffy. From the rest of us, Nebula.
Estes homens vieram a esta torre para saltar, sem cabos. Parece loucura? Para o neurocientista David Eagleman, é mais um dia no escritório. Qual é o seu trabalho? Tentar perceber como é que funciona o cérebro.
So your brain exists encased in silence and darkness inside your skull. How does the brain, with its hundreds of billions of neurons, put together reality for us?
David vê a ciência como um ato criativo, desde interromper uma festa de casamento para recolher ADN, a estudar pessoas que veem o mundo com cores estranhas.
The number 9 is hot pink.
Just the way that we see the world is different.
Até deixar cair pessoas de sítios muito altos. Tudo começou com um acidente.
When I was 8 years old, I went climbing on the roof of a house and I fell off of the roof. On the way down, I was thinking about Alice in Wonderland. When you are the person doing the falling, it seems like it takes a long time.
Todos temos momentos na vida que parecem durar para sempre e outros momentos que passam num instante.
So that got me interested in the issue of time perception.
Foi então que David descobriu a torre.
You're dropped from a 150-foot tall tower in free fall backwards and you're caught in a net below. It took 8 to do this experiment. You're going up this very long elevator ride top. They clip you in and they hang you backwards through this hole in the cage, and it's a long way down to the net. And at that point, you're feeling pretty scared. And you're going 70 miles an hour when you hit the net. I'm an adrenaline junkie, but it's absolutely terrifying. It's not like fun going on a roller coaster. It's just, you know, scary.
Esta queda livre será suficientemente assustadora para criar uma distorção do tempo?
When they're remembering their own fall, people think it took a much longer time.
Once they release you, like, your mind just goes blank.
So we had the duration distortion. Now the question is, are they actually seeing in slow motion during the fall? So I realized what we needed to do was invent a device that didn't exist.
Construiu um monitor onde se podia acelerar os pixels até que se movessem demasiado depressa para que o cérebro conseguisse identificar um número. Os investigadores prenderam um monitor ao pulso de cada pessoa para que tentassem ler os números em alta velocidade enquanto caíam.
So if they're slowing down like a movie camera in slow motion, they'll be able to see very different information on the watch. When we analyze the results from the eagle eye, they can't read the numbers any better during the fall than they can on the ground. It turns out that people are not actually seeing in slow motion. And so this was very unexpected because I had hoped originally that we would be able to show that people have this extra special mode that they can kick into where they're seeing in slow motion.
David continua a estudar a percepção do tempo, mas nem sempre obtém a resposta que quer quando tenta rasgar novas vias científicas.
9 out of 10 great ideas turn out to be really wrong, but the 10th one, you can hit the ball out of the park.
E são estas questões que David trata no seu laboratório.
The vibe in my lab isn't so much the white coats and clipboards, it's more of a creative think tank.
All of our walls are covered in dry erase paint. I have a special coffee mug. I can write on it.
I asked David actually because I was, a little worried, is it okay if I get a mohawk? And he's just like, yeah, I think it's great. Be creative and just really embrace that kind of difference.
Desde o início que David não abordou a ciência de forma normal. Criado no Novo México, ficou fascinado ao ouvir o seu pai, um psiquiatra forense, falar sobre as mentes criminosas que estudou, incluindo o assassino William Wayne Gilbert.
Somebody said to my father, I'm sure that Gilbert feels remorse for what he's done. And my father realized this was a very incorrect view because Gilbert felt the kind of excitement when he was going to murder someone that he had felt as a child on the night before Christmas. So that taught me that it's actually quite impossible to project yourself into someone else's brain.
Ouvindo histórias estranhas sobre as mentes dos assassinos, tornou-se obcecado por perceber como o cérebro humano pode criar uma realidade tão diferente da nossa. Mas as aulas de ciência deixaram-no indiferente.
Unfortunately, I didn't like high school science that much. There's always the answer in the back of the book, and what you're trying to do is get yourself through something that other people have already invented.
Na universidade, David estudou literatura, mas na biblioteca, enquanto era suposto estar a ler clássicos, deu por si a divagar por uma área diferente, a secção de neurociências.
And it never struck me that I might actually go into a career in neuroscience until a friend of mine suggested that. He said, well, why don't you become a neuroscientist? Why don't you study the brain as your career? And it just felt like, oh yeah, of course.
Depois de fazer o doutoramento na Faculdade de Medicina de Baylor, abriu o seu próprio laboratório, onde foi à procura de formas únicas de mostrar como é que o cérebro cria a realidade. Foi aí que começou a ler coisas acerca de uma doença que nunca tinha sido estudada de forma sistemática, a sinestesia.
I just view synesthesia as a different way of perceiving the world.
Em que se mistura sentidos que não estão relacionados.
A's are always red and M's are green.
De forma que as letras e números têm cores.
0 is white, 1 is black, 2 is kind of a light pink color, 2 is fuchsia.
Ou que sentem que a música flutua à sua volta.
I would feel things, I guess, starting from below me and behind me, spiraling up, going through this piano range, and then ending somewhere in the corner.
When I used to do spelling bees, it was really easy for me to reproduce the spelling of the word based on the colors I would see. And when I was in 8th grade, I got second in the Texas spelling bee.
Applause. A-P-P-L-A-U-S-E.
Most of the papers in the literature just had a single subject in it. They would say, we have found a synesthete and here are her characteristics. So I thought, is there a way that we could actually get thousands of synesthetes? And so I turned to the internet.
David concebeu teste na internet para verificar se alguém tem sinestesia e espalhou-se como vírus.
So at this point, I've interviewed and rigorously verified and have all the data on over 6,000 synesthetes. And that has really changed the field.
Conseguiu uma enorme base de sujeitos que podia estudar com os mais recentes instrumentos científicos.
So it turned out that one of our synesthetes was getting married.
David viu nisto uma oportunidade única. A família estaria toda no casamento, mas o que ele queria mesmo era o ADN.
We crashed a wedding where a whole bunch of people were coming together from the family. And we showed up, and we had everybody spit in the spit kits. Then we left. And that was a great way to get a lot of data at once.
Depois quis olhar para o interior das cabeças dos sinestésicos para ver como os seus cérebros funcionavam.
We take someone with synesthesia, they go inside the fMRI machine, then we show them a video from Sesame Street. And we've turned it into grayscale, so there's no color involved. But there are lots of letters and numbers flying at them.
A ressonância magnética dá a David um mapa das partes do cérebro que estão ativas. Quando os sinestésicos viram um vídeo, viram algo muito diferente do que nós vimos.
Even though the cartoon was in black and white, I perceived the number as being in color.
Então, que pistas David encontrou nas imagens de ressonância magnética?
What we seem to be finding is that the areas involved in letters and numbers are right next to the areas involved in colors and textures and spatial forms.
O que David descobriu apoia a ideia de uma conversação entre duas áreas do cérebro adjacentes, mas não relacionadas.
It appears that in synesthesia, there's just a slight tweak on that. Activity in some area will actually excite activity in a neighboring area. So this has led us to a new anatomical understanding of what's happening in synesthesia.
Com cada nova experiência, David compreende como as mais ínfimas mudanças no nosso cérebro alteram profundamente a nossa realidade.
It turns out that people's realities can be quite different.
O cérebro de David fez com que ele traçasse um percurso que é único, cheio de conquistas e de falhas, que está a mudar a forma como vemos o nosso órgão mais vital.
Brains are like fingerprints, and they're slightly different in everybody. So being inside my head and being inside someone else's head can be very different.
E estudar cérebros tão raros ajudou a compreender quão diferentes podem ser as nossas realidades.
We're different on so many levels. Even just the way that we see the world is different from one person to the next.
I don't know what it would be like to have letters and numbers that didn't have colors. Like, that seems like it would be such a dull and drab way to experience them.
And now for some final thoughts on how our brain works. We praise our brain in many ways, but that's surely because it's our brain. But we're so easily fooled by other humans and even by nature itself that we need the methods and tools of science to shield us from bias, blunder, and even delusion. If we were honest with ourselves, then, for example, books on optical illusions would really be called brain failures. The human brain may linger as the last thing in the universe we ever completely figure out. Apart from the philosophical challenge of a mind coming to understand itself, the extreme case of an experimenter interfering with the experiment, there's also the ethical challenge of how you come to know what goes on inside a living person's head. Normally, when confronted with a mysterious orb, an experimentalist pries it open, slices it, dices it, analyzes it, chemically, physically, and biologically. Problem is, people don't normally volunteer their living brains for such studies. Our best hope today lies with the neuroscientists. What are thoughts but electrical impulses among brain cells? What are ideas but novel firings of those cells? What are mental problems, if not impulses that have misfired? In the way that chemistry arose from the ashes of alchemy, neuroscience, a field still in its infancy, may one day subsume psychology, laying bare our inner universe, which has remained hidden for so long. And that is the cosmic perspective.